The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., just like it did every single morning. Maya rolled over in her tiny apartment bed, feeling the familiar weight of her 7-month pregnant belly making every movement a challenge. Her back ached from yesterday's double shift and her feet were still swollen from standing for 12 hours straight. But bills don't pay themselves, and neither does rent. She sat up slowly, placing both hands on her lower back as she tried to stretch out the knots that seemed to multiply every night. The baby kicked, as if reminding her that time was running out. In just 2 months, there would be a little person depending on her for everything, and honestly, that thought terrified her more than she wanted to admit. Maya shuffled to her small kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Half a carton of milk, some leftover takeout from 3 days ago that she probably shouldn't eat, and a few eggs that might last until tomorrow. She made herself a piece of toast with the last bit of peanut butter and tried not to think about grocery shopping. Every dollar had to be carefully planned these days. The mirror in her bathroom reflected a tired young woman who looked older than her 24 years. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights spent worrying about money, about the future, about how she was going to manage being a single mom. She splashed cold water on her face and tried to summon the energy she'd need to make it through another day. Her work uniform hung on the back of the bathroom door, a simple black dress and white apron that had seen better days. The dress was getting tighter around her growing belly, but buying maternity work clothes wasn't exactly in the budget. She'd have to make this work for 2 more months, assuming her boss would even let her keep working that long. The bus ride to Mel's diner took 45 minutes, and Maya used that time to mentally prepare herself for the day ahead. She'd learned to put on a cheerful face for customers, even when her world felt like it was falling apart. Tips were better when you smiled, when you remembered their usual orders, when you made them feel like they mattered. And right now, every single tip mattered more than most people could understand. Walking into the diner at 6:45 a.m., Maya tied her apron and checked her reflection one more time. Game face on. She could do this. She had to do this. The morning rush started almost immediately. Coffee for table 2, pancakes for the construction workers in the corner booth, scrambled eggs for the elderly couple who came in every Tuesday. Maya moved as quickly as her pregnant body would allow, balancing plates and refilling coffee cups while trying to ignore the persistent ache in her lower back. By 10 a.m., the breakfast crowd had mostly cleared out, giving her a chance to catch her breath. She leaned against the counter for just a moment, rubbing her belly where the baby seemed to be doing gymnastics. "You okay, honey?" asked Betty, the other waitress who'd been working at Mel's for almost 15 years. Betty was the closest thing Maya had to a mother figure these days, always checking on her and slipping her extra food when the manager wasn't looking. "Just tired," Maya replied, forcing a smile. "This little one doesn't seem to understand that. Mommy needs to work." Betty shook her head with concern. "You're pushing yourself too hard. What's your doctor saying about you being on your feet this much?" Maya looked away. The truth was she'd missed her last 2 appointments because she couldn't afford to take time off work, and the medical bills were already piling up faster than she could handle. Her insurance from the diner was basic at best, and it definitely wasn't going to cover everything that came with having a baby. "Doctor says I'm fine," she lied, not wanting to worry Betty or admit how far behind she was getting on everything. The lunch crowd brought its own challenges. Maya's feet were screaming by noon, and she found herself having to take more frequent breaks to sit down. A few customers seemed annoyed when she moved a little slower than usual, but most people were understanding when they noticed her condition. One particularly rude customer at table 6 complained loudly about his order taking too long, even though the kitchen was backed up and it had nothing to do with Maya. When she apologized and offered to check on his food, he made a snide comment about pregnant women being too slow to work in restaurants. The words stung more than they should have, probably because they echoed her own fears about job security. Around 2 p.m., during the brief lull between lunch and dinner prep, Maya found herself in the employee bathroom, fighting back tears. The stress, the exhaustion, the constant worry about money, it all felt overwhelming. She placed her hands on her belly and whispered to her unborn child, I'm trying my best, little one. I promise I'm going to figure this out. The afternoon shift brought more of the same. Tired feet, aching back, and the constant mental calculation of tips versus bills. Maya knew she was lucky to have a job at all, especially one where her boss was understanding about her condition. But she also knew that in a few weeks she'd have to take maternity leave, and the diner didn't offer paid leave for part-time employees. She'd been trying to save money for when the baby came, but every time she managed to put a few dollars aside, something would come up. Last month it was a car repair that she couldn't avoid. The month before that, her rent went up. It felt like she was on a treadmill, running as hard as she could just to stay in the same place. As her shift neared its end, Maya calculated her tips for the day. It was decent, but not quite enough to cover what she needed for groceries and gas. She'd have to get creative with meals again this week, maybe pick up an extra shift if her body could handle it. Walking to the bus stop after work, Maya felt the familiar weight of exhaustion settling over her. Her feet throbbed with every step, and she couldn't wait to get home and elevate her legs. But even as tired as she was, she knew she'd be back tomorrow morning, ready to smile at customers and do whatever it took to provide for her baby. The bus ride home gave her time to think about the future, something that both excited and terrified her. She wanted to be a good mother, to give her child opportunities she never had. But right now, just getting through each day felt like a victory. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Maya made herself a promise. No matter how hard things got, no matter how tired she felt, she would keep fighting for her baby. This little person deserved the best life she could possibly provide, and somehow, she was going to make it work. She just had to take it one day at a time. It was Tuesday morning, just after the breakfast rush, when Maya first noticed him. A man in his 50s wearing a navy blue suit that looked expensive but not flashy. He walked into Mel's diner with the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of making important decisions. Yet there was something gentle about the way he moved. He chose table 7, the one by the window that most customers avoided because it was a little too close to the kitchen noise. Maya grabbed a menu and a coffee pot, wondering if he was just passing through town or if this was going to be a quick business meeting. "Good morning," she said with her practiced smile, setting down the menu. "Can I start you with some coffee?" "Please," he replied, his voice calm and polite. "Black coffee, and I'll take a look at the menu." There was something about his manner that struck Maya as different from most customers. He thanked her genuinely when she poured his coffee, made eye contact when he spoke, and didn't seem to be in any hurry. Most business people who came through were checking their phones constantly or tapping their fingers impatiently. When she returned a few minutes later, he ordered wheat toast and asked for his coffee to be topped off. Simple order, nothing fancy. But as Maya walked away, she had the strangest feeling that he was watching her, not in a creepy way, but more like he was observing how she interacted with other customers. The man stayed for almost 2 hours, working on a laptop and making quiet phone calls. Maya noticed he spoke in measured tones, never raising his voice even when he seemed to be discussing serious matters. She couldn't help but catch snippets of conversation about quarterly reports and budget allocations, which made her think he was probably someone important in business. When he left, he placed a $20 bill on the table for a meal that cost $8. Maya stared at the money for a moment, wondering if it was a mistake. But by the time she looked up, he was already walking out the door. "That's quite a tip," Betty commented, noticing Maya counting the money twice. "I know, right? I hope he didn't leave it by accident." Thursday morning brought another surprise. The same man walked through the door at exactly 8:30 a.m. and headed straight for table 7. This time Maya was ready with the coffee pot. "Black coffee and wheat toast?" she asked, remembering his previous order. He looked genuinely pleased that she remembered. "That's perfect, thank you." Again, he stayed for nearly 2 hours, working quietly on his laptop. Maya found herself glancing over occasionally, curious about what kind of work kept someone so focused. He seemed to be reviewing documents occasionally, making notes in the margins with an expensive-looking pen. This time when he left, Maya was helping another customer and didn't see him go. But when she cleared his table, There was another $20 bill waiting for her. By the third week, Maya had started looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays. The mysterious businessman had become as regular as clockwork, always arriving at 8:30, always ordering the same thing, always leaving the same generous tip. She'd started having his coffee ready before he even sat down. Other customers and staff barely noticed him. He was the kind of person who seemed to fade into the background despite his obvious success. Maya overheard Carl, the cook, referring to him as that quiet guy who tips good. But nobody seemed particularly curious about who he was or what he did. Maya, however, found herself increasingly intrigued. She noticed small details about him. The way he carefully folded his napkin when he finished eating, how he always said please and thank you, even for the smallest things, and how he seemed to genuinely listen when she made small talk about the weather or asked if he needed anything else. She also noticed that he observed her interactions with other customers. When she helped an elderly woman who was struggling to read the menu, Maya caught him watching with what looked like approval. When a customer was rude to her about a mix-up in the kitchen, she saw him frown slightly and shake his head. One Thursday, Maya was having a particularly difficult day. Her back was killing her. She'd been on her feet since 6 a.m., and a customer had complained to her manager about her being too slow. She was trying not to cry when she approached table 7 with his usual coffee. "Rough morning?" he asked gently, and the kindness in his voice almost broke her composure. "Just one of those days," she managed, forcing a smile. "But the coffee's fresh and I'll have your toast right out." He nodded, understanding. "Take your time. I'm in no hurry." When Maya brought his toast a few minutes later, he was looking at his phone but immediately put it away to focus on her. Most customers didn't even look up from their devices when she served them. "This might be forward of me," he said carefully. "But if you need to sit down for a minute, please don't feel like you can't on my account. I come here to work, and I'd rather you were comfortable." Maya was touched by his consideration. "Thank you, that's very kind. I'm okay though." But she wasn't okay, and somehow he seemed to know it. Over the following weeks, Maya noticed he paid even more attention to her well-being. When she was carrying heavy trays, he would sometimes shift slightly in his chair, as if wanting to help, but not wanting to overstep. When she had to lean against the counter to rest her back, she sometimes caught him looking concerned. The other staff started joking about Maya's secret admirer, but it didn't feel like that to her. His attention seemed less romantic and more protective somehow, like a father figure or an uncle who cared about her welfare. One Tuesday, Maya was refilling his coffee when he did something that surprised her. Instead of working on his laptop, he was reading a newspaper, and she caught a glimpse of the section he was focused on, an article about programs for single mothers and job training initiatives. She wondered if he had a daughter or if he was involved in charity work. There was definitely more to this man than met the eye, but Maya was too polite to ask personal questions. He was always respectful with her, never prying into her life or making her uncomfortable. As weeks turned into a month, Maya began to look forward to his visits for more than just the generous tips. There was something comforting about his presence, something that made her feel like maybe the world wasn't entirely full of people who only cared about themselves. During one particularly busy Thursday morning, Maya was juggling 3 tables when she noticed him watching her struggle with a heavy tray. She saw him start to stand up as if to help, but then sit back down when another customer gestured for her attention. Later, when things calmed down, she found a note tucked under his coffee cup along with his usual tip. It simply said, "You're doing a great job, take care of yourself." Maya kept that note in her apron pocket for the rest of her shift, pulling it out whenever she felt overwhelmed. It was such a small gesture, but it meant more to her than he probably realized. Betty noticed the change in Maya's demeanor on Tuesdays and Thursdays. "You seem happier on those days," she mentioned during a quiet moment. "Must be that businessman who comes in." "He's just really nice," Maya said, not quite sure how to explain the comfort his presence brought her. It's rare to meet people who are genuinely kind these days. By the 6th week, Maya had developed a routine around his visits. She made sure table 7 was always clean and ready, kept the coffee fresh, and even started setting aside the best pieces of toast for him. It wasn't much, but it was her way of showing appreciation for his consistent kindness. She had no idea that her quiet customer was about to change her life in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. All she knew was that, twice a week for a few hours, her world felt a little bit safer and more hopeful. And sometimes that was enough to keep her going. It was one of those mornings when everything seemed to go wrong from the moment Maya woke up. Her alarm hadn't gone off, making her 20 minutes late to work. The bus had been delayed because of construction, and by the time she rushed through the diner's front door, the breakfast rush was already in full swing. "Where have you been?" snapped Jerry, the manager, as Maya tied her apron with shaking hands. "Table 4 has been waiting 10 minutes for their order, and we're backed up in the kitchen." Maya didn't bother explaining about the alarm or the bus. Jerry wasn't interested in excuses, and she couldn't afford to get on his bad side. She grabbed her order pad and coffee pot, trying to catch up on everything she'd missed. The morning was chaos. Orders were coming in faster than the kitchen could handle, customers were getting impatient, and Maya felt like she was running on empty. Her back ached worse than usual, and she hadn't had time to eat anything before coming to work. By the time she noticed her regular customer at table 7, she was already frazzled and fighting back tears of frustration. She approached his table with his usual black coffee, trying to put on her professional smile despite feeling completely overwhelmed. He was working on what looked like important documents spread across the table, charts, graphs, and papers with lots of numbers that probably represented more money than Maya would see in her lifetime. "Good morning," she said, attempting to sound cheerful. "Sorry, I'm running a bit behind today." "No problem at all," he replied with his usual kindness. "Take your time." Maya began pouring his coffee, but her hands were shaking slightly from stress and exhaustion. As she tilted the pot, a stream of hot coffee missed the cup entirely and splashed directly onto his papers, spreading across what looked like a very important financial report. "Oh my God," Maya gasped, setting the coffee pot down quickly. "I'm so sorry, I can't believe I just did that." Her heart sank as she watched the brown liquid seeping into the documents. These looked like the kind of papers that couldn't just be reprinted. Official documents with signatures and stamps. She felt like she might throw up from embarrassment and panic. "I'm so sorry," she repeated, grabbing napkins from the dispenser and trying to dab at the papers. "Let me get some towels, maybe we can save them. I'll pay for any damage, I promise." But instead of the anger she expected, the man gently placed his hand over hers to stop her frantic dabbing. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "They're just papers, are you all right?" Maya looked up at him in surprise, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "Are you kidding? I just ruined your work. How can you be asking if I'm okay?" "Because you look like you're about to collapse," he said with genuine concern. "When was the last time you sat down?" The kindness in his voice was almost her undoing. Maya felt her composure cracking as the stress of the morning, the pregnancy, and everything else came crashing down on her. "I'm fine," she lied, even as her voice shook. "Let me get you new coffee and see what I can do about these papers." "The papers don't matter," he said firmly. "But you do. Please sit down for a minute." Maya glanced around the diner nervously. "I can't. My manager will have my head if he sees me sitting during my shift." The man looked toward Jerry, who was busy yelling at the cook about something, then back at Maya. "What if I told him you were helping me with something? Would that buy you a few minutes?" Before Maya could protest, he had already gestured to Jerry and called out, "Excuse me, could I borrow your waitress for a moment? I need help with something work-related." Jerry looked annoyed but nodded. The customer was always right, especially ones who dressed as well as this man did. Maya found herself sliding into the booth across from him, feeling awkward about sitting at a customer's table. "I really should clean up this mess," she said, looking at the coffee-stained papers. "I've got copies of everything at my office," he assured her. "Really, it's not a big deal." "But you look exhausted. How far along are you?" 7.5 months, Maya replied automatically, then looked surprised that she'd answered so easily. There was something about his manner that made her want to open up. "That's exciting. First baby?" Maya nodded, placing her hand on her belly. and terrifying. I have no idea what I'm doing. Nobody does with their first, he said with a small smile. Even the people who pretend they have it all figured out are just winging it. Are you planning to take much time off when the baby comes? Maya's laugh was bitter. Time off? I can't afford time off. This place doesn't offer paid maternity leave for part-time employees, and I don't have anyone to help with bills. Something shifted in the man's expression, not pity, but understanding. What about the baby's father? He decided being a dad wasn't part of his life plan, Maya said, trying to keep the hurt out of her voice. Found out I was pregnant and disappeared faster than you could blink. I'm sorry, that must be incredibly difficult. The genuine sympathy in his voice made Maya feel comfortable enough to continue talking. I'm trying to make it work. I've been studying for my GED online when I'm not here, hoping I can maybe get into a community college program eventually. I want to be a nurse someday. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I'd be good at taking care of people. That doesn't sound crazy at all. What made you interested in nursing? Maya thought for a moment. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in hospitals with my grandmother. The nurses were the ones who made everything less scary, you know? They were kind when the doctors were rushed, and they actually listened when she was in pain. I always thought if I could make people feel even a little bit better during the worst times of their lives, that would be worth something. The man was quiet for a moment, and Maya worried she'd shared too much. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle. That's a beautiful reason to want to help people. Your grandmother was lucky to have you there with her. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She's been gone 3 years now, and I still miss her every day. She would have loved this baby so much. Maya's voice caught slightly. I just wish she was here to help me figure out how to do this alone. You're not as alone as you think, the man said quietly. And from what I've observed, you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Maya looked at him curiously. You've been observing me? He seemed to consider his words carefully. I've noticed how you treat people here. You're kind to everyone, even when they don't deserve it. You work harder than anyone should have to, especially in your condition. You remind me of someone very special. Oh? Maya prompted gently. My daughter. She had the same generous spirit you do, always putting others first. His voice grew softer. She died in an accident 5 years ago. She was about your age, actually. Maya felt her heart break a little for this man. I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine. Thank you. She would have liked you, I think. She always said the world needed more people who genuinely cared about others. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Maya realized she'd been away from her tables for quite a while. I should probably get back to work before Jerry fires me. Of course. The man began gathering his coffee-stained papers. But Maya? She looked up, surprised he knew her name. She must have mentioned it at some point, though she couldn't remember when. What you're doing, working this hard to provide for your baby, studying to build a better future. It's impressive. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. As Maya stood up, she felt lighter somehow. It had been so long since someone had really listened to her, had seen her as more than just a pregnant waitress who was probably going to mess up her life. Thank you for listening, and again, I'm really sorry about your papers. They were just numbers on a page, he said with a wave of his hand. This conversation was much more valuable. As Maya walked back to her other tables, she found herself smiling for the first time all day. She had no idea that this conversation would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's conversation with the businessman, and their Tuesday and Thursday routine had continued. He still ordered the same black coffee and wheat toast, still left generous tips, but now there was a different warmth between them. He would ask how she was feeling, and she would update him on her pregnancy or share small victories from her GED studies. But this particular Tuesday started with the kind of news that could shatter someone's world. Maya had arrived at work to find an official-looking envelope that someone had dropped off for her. Inside was a letter from her landlord, a notice that her rent was being increased by $200 starting next month, with no explanation other than property value improvements. $200 might as well have been $2,000. There was no way she could afford it. She read the letter 3 times, hoping the numbers would somehow change, but they stayed stubbornly the same. Maya stuffed the paper into her apron pocket and tried to focus on her tables, but her mind kept racing. Where was she supposed to find an extra $200 a month? She was already working as many hours as her body could handle, and in a few weeks she'd have to take time off for the baby. By the time her regular customer arrived, Maya was fighting to hold back tears. She brought his coffee with trembling hands, and he immediately noticed something was wrong. "Tough morning again?" he asked gently. Maya tried to smile. "Just some unexpected news. Nothing I can't handle." But she could handle it, and they both knew it. She excused herself to help other customers, but he watched her throughout the morning. Every time she thought no one was looking, her shoulders would slump and she'd touch her belly as if trying to comfort the baby inside. Around 10:30, during a brief lull, Maya found herself standing by the coffee machine, staring at nothing. The weight of everything was crushing. The rent increase, the approaching birth, the medical bills, the uncertainty of her future. She felt like she was drowning, and there was no one to throw her a life preserver. "Maya," the businessman's voice came from behind her. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" She turned, wiping her eyes quickly. "Of course. Do you need more coffee?" "No, I'd like to talk to you about something else. Could you sit with me again?" Maya glanced around nervously. "I don't know if I should. Jerry wasn't too happy about last time." "Let me handle Jerry," he said with quiet confidence. He walked over to the manager and spoke to him briefly. Maya couldn't hear what they said, but Jerry nodded and gestured for her to go ahead. When she sat down across from him, he leaned forward slightly. "I want to be honest with you about something. These past few weeks, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation." Maya waited, unsure where this was going. "I haven't been completely truthful about why I come here," he continued. "Yes, I like the quiet atmosphere for work, but mainly I've been watching you." Maya's eyes widened with alarm, and he quickly raised his hand. "Not in the way you're thinking. Let me explain." He took a deep breath. 5 years ago, when I lost my daughter, I went through a very dark time. She was everything to me after my wife died, and when she was gone too, I didn't see much point in anything anymore. Maya's heart ached for him. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. Eventually, I realized that the best way to honor her memory was to help other young women who reminded me of her kindness and determination. I started a small company that creates remote work opportunities for people in difficult situations. Single mothers, people recovering from illness, anyone who needs flexible employment with decent pay. Maya listened intently, not sure where this was leading. "Over the past 2 months, I've watched you work harder than anyone should have to while carrying a baby. I've seen you treat every customer with kindness, even the ones who don't deserve it. You're studying for your education while working exhausting shifts. You're exactly the kind of person my company was created to help." "I'm not sure I understand," Maya said slowly. He leaned back in his chair. "I'd like to offer you a job, Maya. Administrative work that you can do from home with completely flexible hours. The pay would be enough to cover your living expenses, and the company provides full health insurance that would take care of your pregnancy and delivery costs." Maya stared at him, certain she had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'm offering you a legitimate job with my company. You'd be handling customer service emails, basic data entry, scheduling appointments, nothing complicated but important work that helps keep the business running." "But I don't have any experience with that kind of work," Maya protested. "I've only ever waited tables. Experience can be taught. Character can't. And you have the kind of character I look for in employees." Maya shook her head, overwhelmed. "This sounds too good to be true. Why would you want to help me? You barely know me." "I know enough," he said simply. "I know you show up every day, even when you're exhausted. I know you're working toward a better future for yourself and your baby. I know you treat people with respect regardless of how they treat you. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. But what if I'm terrible at office work? What if I can't figure out the computer systems? Then we'll train you until you can. Maya, this isn't charity. I wouldn't offer you a position if I didn't think you could do the job. My business succeeds when my employees succeed." Maya felt tears starting to well up in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Today has been awful. I got a letter this morning saying my rent is going up $200, and I was sitting here wondering how I'm going to afford to keep a roof over my baby's head. Then the timing is perfect, he said gently. What would the salary be? Maya asked, hardly daring to hope. When he told her the number, Maya's hands flew to her mouth. It was more than twice what she made at the diner, even with tips. That's impossible, she whispered. No one pays that much for entry-level work. Good companies pay fair wages for honest work, he replied. And like I said, this isn't charity. You'd be earning every penny. Maya tried to process what he was telling her. Full-time pay for flexible hours, health insurance that would cover her pregnancy, the ability to work from home after the baby was born. It was everything she had dreamed about but never thought possible. Why? She asked, tears now flowing freely. Why would you do this for me? His eyes grew soft. Because 5 years ago, I lost the chance to help my daughter build the life she wanted. I can't get that opportunity back, but I can help other young women who deserve a chance. Maya was crying openly now, not caring who saw her. The relief, the gratitude, the overwhelming sense that maybe everything was going to be okay after all. It was too much to contain. I don't know how to thank you, she sobbed. I was so scared about how I was going to take care of my baby, and you're offering me hope. You don't need to thank me, he said, handing her his napkin. Just succeed. Build the life you want for yourself and your child. That's all the thanks I need. Maya wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. When would I start? Whenever you're ready. We can start the transition process immediately if you want. As Maya sat there crying tears of relief and joy, she realized that sometimes miracles came in the form of quiet businessmen who noticed when someone was struggling and chose to help. Her life was about to change forever. 6 months later, Maya sat in her small but comfortable living room, laptop open on the coffee table, responding to customer emails, while her 3-month-old daughter slept peacefully in a bouncer beside her. The morning sunlight streamed through, windows that now felt like home instead of a temporary stop before disaster. The transition from the diner to remote work had been smoother than Maya ever imagined. Her first day at the new job, she had been terrified she'd mess everything up within hours. But Mr. Chen, she'd finally learned his name was David Chen when he officially hired her, had been right about the work being manageable. Customer service, emails, appointment scheduling, basic data entry, all things she could learn with patience and practice. What surprised Maya most was how much she enjoyed the work. Helping customers solve their problems felt meaningful, even through email. She found herself going above and beyond, writing detailed responses and following up to make sure people were satisfied. David had noticed her dedication during their weekly check-in calls and praised her natural customer service skills. You have a gift for making people feel heard, he had told her during their last video meeting. Several customers have specifically mentioned how helpful you've been. The baby, Lily, stirred in her bouncer, making the soft cooing sounds that always made Maya's heart melt. Motherhood had been everything she'd expected, and nothing like she'd prepared for. The sleepless nights were brutal, but holding her daughter, for the first time, had been the most incredible moment of her life. And thanks to the health insurance David's company provided, the delivery had been covered completely. Maya had cried happy tears when the hospital told her there would be no bills to worry about. Maya picked up Lily and settled her in her lap, continuing to type one-handed, while the baby looked around with curious eyes. The flexible schedule was a godsend. She could work during naps early in the morning or late at night when Lily slept for longer stretches. As long as she completed her tasks and responded to emails within reasonable time frames, David didn't care when she worked. Soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Maya knew who it was before she even looked. David had started visiting every few weeks, always bringing something practical like groceries or baby supplies, but really coming to check on them both. Come in, Maya called, knowing he had the spare key she'd given him for emergencies. David entered carrying a bag from the grocery store and what looked like a college catalog. How are my favorite girls doing today? He asked, his face lighting up at the sight of Lily. We're great, Maya said, standing up with the baby. Lily slept for 4 hours straight last night. 4 hours. I felt like a new person this morning. David chuckled, setting down his bags and reaching for Lily. The baby had taken to him immediately, and Maya loved watching this successful businessman turn into a doting grandfather figure. He claimed Lily had his daughter's eyes, though Maya wasn't sure about that. She just knew that David had become family in a way she never expected. I brought some things, he said, bouncing Lily gently. Formula, diapers, and some of those baby food packets you mentioned wanting to try. David, you don't have to keep bringing us stuff, Maya protested, though she was grateful. You're already paying me well enough to buy what we need. I know, he said with a smile. But I like taking care of you both. Besides, I also brought something else. The community college nursing program catalog. Applications for the spring semester are due next month. Maya's eyes widened. She'd mentioned wanting to pursue nursing eventually, but with a new baby, it seemed like an impossible dream. I can't start school now. Lily's too young and I need to work. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, David said, sitting down with Lily still in his arms. I've been thinking about expanding your role with the company. What would you say to managing our customer service department? Managing, but I've only been doing this for 6 months. And you've been excellent at it. I have 3 other remote employees doing similar work, but they all come to me with questions that you could handle better than I can. You understand the customer side because you've been there. Maya sat back down, processing what he was saying. What would that mean exactly? More responsibility, better pay, and most importantly, a schedule you could work around nursing school. The community college has evening and weekend programs specifically designed for working parents. Maya felt her eyes filling with tears, something that happened a lot these days, though now they were happy tears instead of desperate ones. You really think I could handle both school and work? I know you could, David said confidently. You're one of the most capable people I've ever met, and Lily would benefit from seeing her mom pursue her dreams. Maya looked at her daughter, who was contentedly grabbing at David's tie. 6 months ago, she had been terrified about how she'd provide for this little person. Now she was talking about going to college and building a career. It felt almost surreal. There's something else, David continued. I've been thinking about expanding the company's mission. Instead of just providing remote work opportunities, I want to create a more comprehensive program, job training, educational support, childcare assistance. I'd like you to help me develop it. Me? But I don't know anything about developing programs. You know what it's like to be where our potential employees are. You understand the challenges single mothers face, the barriers to education and employment. Your perspective would be invaluable. Maya was quiet for a moment, overwhelmed by the possibilities he was laying out. Why do you have so much faith in me? David's expression grew thoughtful. Because you remind me every day that there are good people in the world who deserve a chance to succeed. When I lost my daughter, I thought maybe kindness didn't matter anymore. But watching you work so hard for your baby, seeing how you treat everyone with respect even when you're struggling, it restored my faith in human goodness. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You saved my life, you know that? Not just financially, but in every way that matters. You saved mine too, David said softly, giving me a purpose again, letting me be part of Lily's life. It's helped me heal in ways I didn't think were possible. Maya stood up and hugged them both, her makeshift family that had formed in the most unexpected way. So what do you say? David asked. Ready to change more lives? Maya thought about the young woman she'd been 6 months ago, scared, alone, and convinced she was out of options. Now she had a beautiful daughter, meaningful work, and the chance to pursue her dreams. More than that, she had the opportunity to help other women who were where she used to be. Yes, she said with conviction. Let's do it. 2 hours later, after David had left and Lily was napping again, Maya sat at her laptop working on a new project, writing job descriptions for positions that would give other struggling mothers the same chance she'd been given. She was also reviewing the nursing program requirements, mapping out how she could balance school with work and motherhood. It wouldn't be easy, but Maya had learned that the most worthwhile things in life rarely were. She looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully and made a silent promise. Lily would grow up knowing that kindness matters, that people can surprise you, and that sometimes the most life-changing moments come from the most ordinary places, as Maya typed. She smiled, thinking about how this all started with spilled coffee and a $20 tip. Now she was building a future she'd never dared to imagine, all because one person chose to see her worth when she couldn't see it herself. The mine story was far from over, but for the first time in her life, Maya was excited to see what came next.